back to the Dead Chicken Cooking Channel. You're probably going to be seeing a lot of us because I do a lot of Christmas baking. Today I'm starting off with the first thing that I bake for the Christmas season, which is my old-fashioned dark fruit cake. I have been making this, like everything else I make, for about 40 some odd years. And to me it's just not Christmas without Christmas cake. So this is a demonstration of how you make from scratch the real old-fashioned dark fruit cake. Okay, we're going to just show you all that goes into it. First of all, this is the fruit that I use, and it's all listed under my recipe. And what you do with this is you let it marinate in dark rum. I use Lamb's Old Navy rum, and you let it marinate at least overnight or even longer. And then the next day, I will demonstrate this to you in a minute, is you have to add a little bit of flour to coat the fruit before you put it into the actual fruit cake. But for the other ingredients, it calls for only 2 cups of flour, which is unbelievable, but it's mostly fruit. My cake is mostly fruit. I don't have a lot of batter in it, and that's what makes it so good. And the rum. We mustn't forget the rum part of it. I used to make it with brandy a long time ago, but I found that rum has a much nicer flavor than the brandy. So this right here is going to be the flour that I will use to mix in with that fruit in a bit. And then for the dry ingredients part of the cake batter, it requires 2 cups of flour and some spices and a little baking powder and salt. So there's my 2 cups of flour, and I'm just going to put this back. And another point I'll have to show you, if you can bring the camera over here. This is what we do for dark fruit cake so it doesn't get scorched in the oven. You actually have to use some shortening and grease all the tins, and then you make, they're not all that great, but you make them to fit the pans out of brown paper, and you also grease that so it doesn't stick. And another thing that I do, I'm going to do it right now, is I take a oven-proof dish and I fill it full of water because it helps steam the oven while the cakes are cooking. And you put that underneath where your cakes are going to be cooking. You just put it out there in the middle like so. And then you put them in. And the temperature for these is very low. We only cook them at 275 degrees. So I'm just going to get the oven preheating here. There we go. So now it's just a matter of mixing the batter together and putting all the spices in. Right now it calls for 1 teaspoon of cloves. Right there. And this is written down. This is what I wrote the recipe on way back in about 1975. These are some of my checks from then. It even has my old address on it from then. And so it's 1 teaspoon of each of the spices, which is cloves. This one's the cinnamon. And allspice. And that's what you put in this. There's the allspice. Okay, that is our spices. And we need to add, along with that, I need to put in a half a teaspoon of salt, and a half a teaspoon of baking soda, which I forgot to get.
We're not putting peanut butter in this for sure.
Are you sure? That would be unusual. Okay. Excuse my messy cupboard. You weren't supposed to see that. Okay, so a half a teaspoon of salt and a half a teaspoon of baking powder. There's and the baking powder. There we go, about a half a teaspoon. And then we just stir this until it's all nicely combined. Make sure your spices are nicely mixed in.
When I was young, you got me to do this. Remember?
Mm-hmm. Sometimes it helps to have help. Right?
I used to like making muffins and mixing it.
See, we're still coming up with some dark areas of spice, so we got to get that completely combined. Maybe the lights will help a little bit. I forgot to turn on the light above me here. As you can see now, it's all nice and uniformly mixed in there, which is what we're looking for. Okay, that can go there for now. And now the next step is to I gradually put in a little bit and stir it. This is just coating the fruit with a bit of flour. They call it dredging, is the technical term for it. And sometimes I add other fruits other than what's in the recipe. This year I was having a very difficult time trying to find one particular thing, which I always put in, but I couldn't find it, and it's called candied pineapple wedges, and I've looked everywhere and cannot find it. So I kind of put in a combination of cranberries, a little bit of mango, candied mango or dried mango, and another combination of some figs and that kind of thing together. So we'll see if my cakes turn out to taste completely different. I hope not, because I kind of like the way they already taste. And I usually make anywhere between 4 to 8 loaf pans a year, because I have an older son named Sean that loves fruitcake, and his wife Tina as well. They both like their fruitcake. Whereas the son that lives with me, his name is Matthew, absolutely hates fruitcake. There's no accounting for taste, though. So there we are. That's all coated in flour now and ready to go. And I'm just going to move these out of my way for a minute. Just get them over there. And now we can start with the mixing. I already took the butter out, which is 1 cup of butter, and hopefully it's softened, because this is a metal bowl and I can't put it in the microwave. Sadly, it's not softened enough. I left it at room temperature overnight, but it's still pretty hard. And usually when that happens, I can just put it in the microwave to soften it, but that's not going to happen because I don't think the metal bowl in the microwave will work out too well.
Yep.
So I'm just going to have my butter a little bit harder than it should be, which is not good for mixing. But we did have to cope with these things before microwaves were used commonly. Alrighty, so that's a little mixing. Brown sugar. Here it is. And I always use the dark brown sugar. I like that the best. It gives more flavor. And we need 2 cups of that. and you have to pack it down quite firmly. There we are. Okay, in order to soften that butter up, I put this bowl in a sink full of warm water because it was just too hard. And it doesn't mix properly like that. So that worked out really good since I couldn't put it in the microwave. I used to always mix this in a big grip stand mixing bowl, and it broke on me this year, so I have lots of big bowls, so I didn't think I needed to replace it, being that it was worth about $100. Unfortunately, it cracked and broke. See how nicely that's mixing now? It's blending in all of everything. So just a little bit of cleaning the sides of the bowl with a spatula. Then we can add the flour. And another thing that we have in here is 3/4 of a cup of, I always use sun-ripe apple juice because it's my favorite.
And also tastes better.
And then we also have molasses mixed together. So that gets added to this, but you got to stir it first because I got it all here and the molasses settled at the bottom. So we stir that up.
So what would it taste like?
Oh, it tastes pretty good, I imagine. The molasses doesn't seem to want to mix either because it was pretty... Molasses, they always used to have a saying, slower than molasses in January. That's because if it's cold out, it doesn't pour well. It thickens up and it doesn't pour. So this is kind of what's happening here because it's not overly warm, the molasses. And that is your liquid ingredients along with the eggs, which I'm just going to add right now. And this recipe requires 6 eggs.
That's a lot.
So they get added to the sugar and butter mixture. And when I'm making fruit cake, I never skimp on ingredients. I always use pure butter. And I buy the freshest eggs I can to make it with. So,
sounds like a bell.
yeah, it does.
School time's over, kids. Right?
Or it's time to go to church. Those are the bells calling you in. Ding dong. Okay, that's... I'll just put it back in the fridge.
See, it fills up the entire bottom.
Okay. Now we gotta mix this. How many?
17.
Well, you can... Okay, so just a little bit more to combine that together. This is where it's very important that your butter is soft because I would just have big clumps of butter in here still if I hadn't have heated up a little bit in the sink. There we go. Alrighty. So now, just the flour. And Or I didn't know I had a spoon in there. I forgot. So you add the flour alternately with this molasses and apple juice together, like in a couple of, mix it in. So that's my first addition. And just clean the sides of the bowl. And I will add the rest of the ingredients and mix them all together and then clean it again. And we're ready to add the fruit and put it in the pans for baking. Now there's a note on this. It takes a very long time for these to bake. It's usually at least 2 hours or longer. And you have to kind of check on them all the time to see if they're ready. You know they're ready when you put your hand gently on the top and it doesn't sink in. It just stays nice and, what's the word I'm looking for here? It just stays nice and stiff on top and it doesn't indent at all. So a little bit of that molasses. There we go, and I'll put my spatula up here on the fruit so it doesn't get the counter dirty. And mix again. Just a little bit of bowl cleaning and we should be almost done here, and we can add the fruit and put it in the pans to bake. Now, Christmas cake or fruit cake seems to be something that people either like or hate. I personally love it. I don't know if you can see very well in here, but when something's properly mixed, it looks very uniform and there is no longer any little bits of separation in the batter itself, as it still is doing a little bit around the edges. So I think I should clean it one more time and give it one more additional mixing, and it should be good, because around the edges it's still forming kind of a little bit of an area where it shows it's not properly mixed yet, which is very important. Okay. Just one more little. There, that looks pretty good. And then we do not need the electric mixer anymore, because at this point we stir it, the fruit in just with a spoon. So I'll just get that out of the way. And then we'll put it we'll do one pan for you to show you how it is, and then as we take it out from the oven later, you'll get to look at that. Now this is quite heavy because I have a lot of fruit in here. It probably weighs, I don't know, at least 8 pounds. And you just add it a bit at a time and stir it in so it's thoroughly coated with the batter. Try to get the sides in there as well when you're mixing. And be able to go with one more here and be done. You can still see remnants of rum in the bowl. I put a lot in this year. I figure everybody needs more rum during COVID. Try to get that in there. There we are. Alrighty. You want to make sure you've got all of the fruit nicely stirred in. As you can see, That's pretty well mixed. Okay, now I'll just get one of the pans and start putting it in. You try to evenly distribute it. This usually makes 4 loaf pans. See, the brown paper was sticking up everywhere, but once you put the batter in it, it weights it down and it sits in there nicely. And I'm just doing this one on camera so you can see approximately how full you need to fill the pan. We don't have a lot of rising of this cake. It's not one that rises up too high, so you can fill it fairly full. A little bit more. And I have a kitchen scale, and I often weigh them just to make sure they're all kind of equally the same size if I can. Hi, we're back now, and we've already got all the fruit cake in the pans, and this is what it should look like, and it's ready to go in the oven for baking. So once it's done and they're removed from the oven, I'll show you what to do with them and how to get the paper off. Thank you very much. We'll see you in a bit. Okay, we're back here at Dead Chicken Cooking Channel, and we're just going to take the fruit cakes out of the oven. As you can see, that's what they look like when they're all done. And you can confirm that by putting your hand gently on top. And if it doesn't make a real big indentation, it's all done. So I will take them out and put them on cooling racks. And when they're completely cooled, we just take the paper off gently, and they're ready to go. Normally, when I'm putting them in the freezer, I usually wrap them in clear plastic wrap, and then I put some tin foil over them, and then I put them in a baggie as well, just to keep them well sealed. And I usually keep these fruit cakes, will probably be used next year for Christmas. I like to be a year ahead, because the older they are, the more flavor they get. And that's it. There we have the water in here that I'll take out. And that kept it moist in the oven. And that is everything for now. And I hope you enjoyed this and that you make some fruit cakes. Give it a try. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and thank you for watching.